I mentioned before that anthropology is the study of the human being. You can take these classes in college, right? But one of the required theology classes for a degree in theology is called Christian anthropology. We add the word Christian in front of it. And as Catholics, our whole church, our whole intellectual life of the church, has spent time studying the human being and have a well-defined teaching of the human being that really differs from the contemporary culture. When we look at the world, we see that creation includes the material world and the spiritual world. And what makes the human being so unique is that we believe that we are the one creation. We know that where we comes together the spiritual and the material world. We are both body and spirit. And really in the world that we call living, such as all the animals and the plants, they share in kind of lesser degree of this kind of combination of spirit and body. And even when we talk about animals, that we share in some lesser degrees in the rational idea of them being able to understand existence. But the soul seeks knowledge. It seeks truth. We like to understand things. What's unique about the human being is that it does seek to know. That's the reason why we built spaceships and circled around the moon, called Artemis II, so we could see the side that we haven't seen. But why? Because we want to know. We want to know what's there. We want to know what's on the back side of the moon, a place where we have not yet seen, but we desire somehow as a human race to see it. We also do a whole lot of exploring because we want to know. And it's in the nature of the human being to make sense of things, right? And to know and to understand. And yet we live with so much that we don't know. And so much we don't understand at the moment, especially when we're going through experiences. It's like, I don't understand what's happening to me. I don't know. Only later, that is sometimes we begin to understand why. And we begin to understand the reasons. We seek the significance of an event. Only later when we look back and we're like, now I see. Now it makes sense to me. Today we read the story of the two traveling from Jerusalem after the Passover, and they're on their way to Emmaus, back home. And they're talking about the things that happened these past few days, the ones we've celebrated. Jesus was crucified, and now the women say that they have seen him. Now that would be hard for them to understand at the time. What is going on here? The Bible alludes to the fact that they were sad, right, and that they were confused. Jesus comes to them, and after asking them, what are they discussing now? What are you talking about now? And they speak about the confusion and the sadness that they have. And Jesus begins to explain things to them, and only after the blessing and the breaking of bread, we call now today the Eucharist, they begin to understand. Now they can see. So they run to the apostles and they tell them and speak about how their hearts were burning when he spoke, but they did not know it fully. They didn't understand it until Jesus broke bread with them. And they look back at what happened and they begin to see and understand. There are so many things in this life that as rational beings we seek to understand, and yet we do not, and we cannot understand until later, sometimes much later. And for some people, they will never accept something. They will never do something, or they'll never appreciate something until they fully understand it, or unless they can, at the moment, or before they even act on something. Before I need to know. And they're not necessarily to blame for this, because As rational creatures, human beings desire to understand. However, there's a limit in this world to our rational faculties. At some point, we have to accept on faith and hold on to faith with the promise that we will understand sometime. For many things in life, truth is found only later, maybe much later, after, when everything comes together. And as our limited knowledge and experience and understanding cannot know everything fully, things come to light over time. Sometimes, too, having faith that God does know, and that he moves everything toward the good, and that he has the final word on everything. That's how the believer, you and I, how we move forward in life. And I would bet that everyone in here has had the experience of these two people leaving Jerusalem, sad and confused, at the events that took place, and only later saw or understood its significance, its meaning. Sometimes only when we look back, and they look back and seeing things put together. Now I see. And they recognize that our limited knowledge and our feelings and our experiences and how we interpret things, even as things are confusing to us, that we don't understand yet, or that it doesn't make sense to us right now, it doesn't mean it is not true or good or right. Faith allows us to endure through these things with the belief that God knows and that God can work and that he has the last word. So the loss of a job, right? A sickness, a little stroke, right? A divorce, a marital issue, the need to move to a new location, a natural disaster. We have no idea what all of this means. And for centuries we've questioned them. Why? How come? I need an answer sometimes. I need an answer now, is what we respond. But we have no idea how it all fits together and where is God in all of it. In a certain moment in time, our eyes prevent us from seeing, just like those two on their way to Emmaus. And only faith helps us to endure when things don't make sense at this moment, or we question, why? Why does it have to happen to me? We believe with faith that in time, it will all be revealed. Because as human beings, we desire to know. We want to understand. But Jesus promises that once you do know and understand, you will have no questions to ask him.